Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide online divorce, mediation, and valuation services in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we will discuss the Unimpeachable Rebuttal with Zachary Meyers, a CVA and CPA in Winfield, West Virginia. He is a testifying expert and has been qualified as an expert in the forensic accounting, taxation, business valuation, and pension valuation fields, specifically in civil, marital, and criminal litigation. What is maybe at the conclusion of this? Because realistically, I think we've just told people some of our own horror stories or our own learning lessons. But what is some of your biggest advice for experts who are starting? Because right now we do kind of have a glut in experts. We have a lot of experts that are older that may be retiring, and we don't have a lot of newer, younger experts coming into play. So if somebody wanted to get into it, which I think all people should, it's very lucrative, fun, it's always different. But what would be your advice for some of those experts?
Start a habit of continuous learning now, because if you stop learning at any point in time and you just become set in your ways, and this can happen even if you just start doing nothing but teaching and don't actually sit down and take other people's courses, and this can happen 20 years down the road. Start learning now. Start a habit of building your intellectual capital each and every year. Take a diverse mix of courses. Read a lot. I mean, if you're going to be an expert, you have to be well read. It doesn't make any sense. It's an oxymoron to be a underwell read expert. You have to be well read. If you're not well read, you can get called on it. So start now the process of taking courses. I know I'll be teaching Unimpeachable Neutrality at NACVA conference in December 14th, as well as the Chicago chapter of Forensic Expert Witness Association on December 9th virtually. Those sort of things, those will actually help you to understand, the past, the present, and where the future of expert witnesses in your particular field is going. And I think that you can easily become obsolete when you stop learning. That goes for the 20-year expert or the 2-year expert. It doesn't end when you get your credential. It doesn't end when you have your first case or big settlement or something. You have to continuously learn and try to build upon your knowledge base. And the moment you stop doing that, you can very easily become irrelevant and obsolete, or what you're doing can become obsolete. So you have to keep a pulse on everything. And the best way to do that is by taking continued professional education, watching podcasts like this. This podcast, I watch all kinds of episodes where I'm just like, oh, this is great stuff. And that's one of the best things about this podcast, is because you want to get a diverse mix of a learning experience, whether it provides CPE or not. And you want to just hear from other experts and hear from other states even. I love hearing stuff from other experts in other states and around the country and the globe even, because, talking to an expert that does what you do in England is a pretty interesting conversation, I can tell you. So things like that, and just always stay open-minded and be willing to take advice and listen to experiences of other people, because that expands your knowledge base. It helps you to become less biased and more aware of the considerations and things that you need to be aware of and take into consideration. And that's one of the best things about this podcast, and one of the best things about just, getting out there and networking, is you hear different perspectives and their basis for it and their experience. And that's extremely valuable. I mean, you can teach your kids in a lot better situation by telling them a story sometimes than just telling them not to do something. And that's because they can feel it, they can see it. So talk to people, get their experience. Don't just necessarily go for what this one person is telling you, but why are they telling you? Listen to their experience, listen to why they do it, and listen to a diverse mix of opinions, because diversity just inherently will make you more educated, more well-rounded, and more well-read, and be able to take on the opposing expert rebuttal or questions from an attorney just trying to get you upset on the stand or at a deposition.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of lessons that you don't necessarily need to learn on your own. And the consistency, although it seems like, oh, you guys are just talking about simple things. The consistency, I like to say, be consistent until you change, and then be consistent that you change. So
Exactly.
recently I testified to something on the stand, and they said, "Do you always testify to this answer?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Always." And I said, "Yes."
Mhm.
And I'm consistent with that. And they're like, "You recommend this to your," I said, "No, I don't do that. But this is how I testify for this particular issue." And I think that, or I've said before, like, there's certain analyses that I don't do. And they're like, "You never do it?" And I was like, "No, I typically have the attorney run the child support or something, and then I incorporate the number." And they're like, "You never run child support numbers? You could." And I was like, "Yeah, because it's a calculator." So I figured they input whatever they want into it because there's no judgment, and then get the number, so and sometimes it's like incredulous. They're like, "Oh, well, how could you," or and things like that. But I think that that's me being consistent. That's me. If you talk to that attorney, that's the same thing that I testified to in that particular case. And so I think that what we talked about at the beginning is trust is earned and it is built upon. And so you can make mistakes in this field and you can learn and be like, "Okay, I'm not going to do that again." But I also think that you should take on cases that, like, are kind of smaller and then build upon it, because I've seen people that kind of take on more than they can handle, and it will be a case that pretty much breaks their career, right? Not breaks their career from, like, no one's ever going to work for them. It breaks them internally about the process, right? And it makes it so that they're like, "Ugh, testifying is horrible. Like, they came for me." And I'm always like, "Well, did they come for you because you put yourself too far out there? Or did they come for you because if somebody comes for you and you did it what you thought is right, you do not react, right? It's sort of like if somebody comes to you and then says something that you knew was there, but you hope no one found, then you're like, "Ah, shit," like, "Oh, you found it," kind of thing. So I think in those types of situations, you're constantly, and the attorneys are who will continue to hire you. And so they will watch how you do, like, it's not easy to do, but I try to be even consistent with pricing. I try to be even consistent, like, at the end of an entire process, you know, was it still a reasonable price to be paid? Because I can't just go after each client and be like, "Oh, you have a lot of money. I'll take all your money." The attorney's going to be like, "Oh, I see what you did there. And you didn't do it over here." So everybody's watching and you have to be okay with that. And then that's where the consistency, if you consistently show up a certain way, then they'll be like, "Yep, she tells it like it is. Yep, Zach just tells me the truth and we can't get him." And to the point where I now know there are times when attorneys do not hire me, and I'm perfectly okay with it, right? Because they're
Mhm.
looking for something that I consistently will not provide. And I'm perfectly happy with it. And you have to be perfectly happy that they will self-select you, but you get to choose how they self-select you. You get to choose the times that they know that they want you there. So I know that they want me there when they want the right number.